All right, we're back. Let's get into your Dynasty Debates. I love the segment intro. I love that I don't never know what the new segment intros are going to look like, and that one did not disappoint. Shout out to Jung on that one. All right, so as I mentioned, we for the rest of January here in the final segment of these Wednesday shows, we're going to go over some of your Dynasty Debates. If you want to be featured on the show, fantasymailbag@yahoosports.com. Send in your Dynasty Debates there. Honestly, we got a ton of responses on the first call out. We're probably good for the rest of the month, especially considering I don't manage time on these shows well, and I'm not even sure we're going to get to all 5 here today. We're probably not. So we might have enough already for the rest of the month, but if you got a good one, send it into the mailbag anyways, and we will consider it for a future show. Let's get into one that actually was from the social media call out here. This was from Dennis. What should I do with guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome, and Egbuka, who still carry a lot of dynasty value but haven't really produced on the field? I wanted to include this one for 2 reasons. One, because we also got an email from Nathan Sharp. We just got so many of these same name players here, plenty of responses on these guys. He said, I have Brian Thomas Jr., Marvin Harrison, Roma Dunze for my dynasty team. It's time to panic going into year 3 or hold firm on all 3 of them. That was one reason, because a lot of these guys came up, and I actually don't necessarily want to break down all of these guys individually here, Boone. I actually want to focus on the part of the question where they said dynasty value. And I want to hear your opinion on this idea, because it's one that I struggle with. Like, this is going to sound like way too harsh, and maybe I don't mean it this way. I think the whole idea of dynasty value is like BS. I personally, I don't play dynasty like it's a stock market where, like, oh, this guy, he lost 5 points in value, you know, this was bad or something. Like, the whole point of dynasty is it's a multi-year thing. I think patience has to be a big part of it. Like, you're not going to get a payoff from some of these guys in the first 2-3 years of their career. Sometimes that payoff might come later. I just think this idea of playing it like that is, to me, I even think some of it is, if I'm being like super honest, I think it's pushed by content creators to give them something to talk about. If we're being honest, I think that's part of it too. But anyways, I kind of want to hear your thoughts on that and any of these players if you want to highlight as well.
Well, clearly Harmon's going to be reading my dynasty trade value charts that are going to be coming out next week. They'll be updated next week. Sounds like it's his favorite piece of content at Yahoo. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think it's probably less fun to play it that way, to play it like a stock market. I probably find myself somewhere in between where I am trying to make up value in certain ways, but I'm not just going to play it like they're just numbers on a spreadsheet and I'm trying to gain the value that way. There's guys that I'm going to fall for who I'm going to die on that hill. I'm going to keep them on my team and hope that they come through because I really believed in them as prospects or something like that. I would liken it to, if anyone's ever like had a poker game with their friends, like, and I've had this before, where it should be like a bunch of friends around a table, cracking jokes, playing cards. But every once in a while, one of your buddies will show up and he's got a pair of sunglasses and a hoodie on, and he wants to put headphones in his ear and act like it's the World Series of Poker. And how is that fun? Like, that is not enjoyable. Maybe it gives him the best chance to win that day, but that's not fun for everyone. How can it be fun for him? I feel the same about Dynasty. So when you're looking at these receivers specifically, I don't know that any of these guys, based on the way the season went, we're talking about like Roma Dunze and Egbuka and Brian Thomas Jr. These are all guys that had fairly bad finishes to the season or really bad stretches to the season where I don't think you are going to be able to get what they're probably worth in a trade. I think most of the guys in this question are all holds for Dynasty. I might be willing to go out and try to buy on the Cardinals guys. I don't know that Michael Wilson would be a great value, but I think Marvin Harrison Jr., because the injury and because Michael Wilson kind of overshadowed him in the second half of the season, maybe you can get a bit of a discount there. Maybe people will forget about the fact that Marvin Harrison Jr. was playing pretty well and was having some moments before we saw all of that happen and him get hurt. So other than that, I think you're just holding on these guys. I think there's talent in all these names that were mentioned. And I think you got to hang in there and hope that the situations change or that they move. In the case of BTJ, you referenced it earlier, like maybe he's the guy from the Jags receiver room that gets dealt this offseason and you see him in a new, scenario and a fresh start somewhere. And that bumps up his fantasy value. But yeah, overall, I think pretty much all the names that I'm seeing here in these questions, I'd probably be holding on and hoping that things improve for them next season and beyond.
Yeah, and that's my thing with the dynasty value. Like you outlined it perfectly. All these leagues are all individualistic, like poker rooms essentially. So and I think the value charts and all that it's instructive to kind of get somebody in the ballpark to start the conversations, but to act like this is his absolute value because like some aggregate ADP says that on the internet, it's just not for me. And that's just kind of my thought on it. But I think it's just different strokes for different folks. That's just where I come. I think that I would hold on to all these players, if not even buy some of them, if the particular manager in your league is pissed about an Odunze or a Harrison or something like that. I do think that the best is yet to come for those young players. That's kind of where I'm at on that one. Let's get to the second one here before we go down any more esoteric value Harmon rants here. We definitely don't need any more of that. This one comes in from Steven on Jackson Smith-Njigba. Hey, I'm an avid dynasty player, so here's my best question at the moment. Is it time to sell high on Jackson Smith-Njigba? I say yes, because he's at the absolute peak of wide receiver value right now. And as we saw with Jefferson, a situation can shift quickly and cause an incredible player to have a disappointing season. What you get back surely matters, but let's say it's an on-the-rise receiver like Luther Burden and 2 first-round picks. That's a ballpark return from a trade calculator I recently looked at. I'd find that mighty tempting. Thank you. What do you think about this idea, Boone, of JSN being a sell high, the highest of sells here?
I'd be really careful with this one. Like the logic that they're stating there, would you just trade every single good player you have then? Anytime anyone has a great season, you're trading them away and trying to restock? If you're a fantastic like talent evaluator and if you're a great dynasty player, maybe that works for you, but you're trading away guys 23 years old, just gave you over 1,700 yards and 10 touchdowns. I don't know why you want to trade that guy. Like, I don't think this season was fraudulent in any way for him. I do think he's that player. I think he's the real deal. I think he can continue to deliver. And I will say, like, again, and this kind of references what you talked about in the first question there, Harmon. You look at one of these trade calculators and you say, okay, I could get Luther Burden and 2 firsts. Well, can you actually get that for, I grew up, I collected, playing cards, or I collected, sports cards, and you'd go look at the book and you'd say, okay, here's the value, but can you actually get that value from someone, or is that just someone's projected value for them? Right. So I would be very careful with just assuming you're going to get that kind of return. I do think that Burden is an excellent player, and I do think that 2 firsts and Burden is probably a pretty good return for a guy like JSN. But it also then comes down to other factors, like is your team contending? Because if your team's contending, what I'm trying to do is consolidate my assets to get the elite guys, to get the top end producers, to try to win a title. I don't want to reset at that point and hope that Burden ends up being good and hope that I can hit on those first round picks. I want that guy like JSN who I can play in my lineup. But if you're not contending, if you're a few pieces away, if you're in a bit of a rebuild, then absolutely you want to think about trading a guy like this at the peak of his value, because he's not going to get you over the hump and into the championship game necessarily, where getting 3 pieces that you could hit on even 2 of them, that could improve your team. So I would factor all those things in. And yes, if you want to shop him around, you don't have to make a trade either, right? You could shop him around and see what kind of returns are getting offered and then go from there. But this one kind of comes down to where you're at in your roster build and trying to contend. And in general, I would just say I don't normally trade guys that are his age and performing the way he did. I don't want to get rid of a player like that. I want to go acquire a player like that.
I completely agree with that. And, this is something we're going to unpack more and more of. It is a little bit of the Family Guy meme, right? Where it's Lois, a boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat. It's like, 2 first round picks. Like that could be anything. It could even be Jackson Smith-Njigba. Like that's part of it. But also I do think that guys that are at the peak of the wide receiver position right now that have shown the ability to be the best wide receiver in the NFL, they matter more and more because of the drop off. And again, this is something I was talking about on social media this week. It's more of a thing going forward. The drop off at the wide receiver 2 position, like there's a ton of players that fit into that ballpark right now. And you re-roll for that second, that first round pick, you might end up with one of those guys as opposed to a Jackson Smith-Njigba. So yeah, to me, Steven, and by the way, this is the answer to every single dynasty question. These are your teams. You should do what you think is right. And if this is where you're at, like go for it. But to me, I'll tell you right now, I could never, ever, 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 ever have the stones to do it. So there is that. Unfortunately, we have to cut this segment short here, Justin Boone. We can't get to the final few questions because we have some breaking news coming into the show right now. Fantasy Pros has just announced this on social media. The most accurate expert, the most accurate ranker of the season is none other than our guy, Justin Boone. Boone, you absolute freaking superstar. You have won the rankings contest. No need to go into a Waffle House as a fly. No need to live out in dinosaur land. None of that is on the cards here anymore, my friend. This is massive. I'm gonna glaze Boone here because I know he's not gonna do it himself. Let me just say, for the record here, number one, this is Boone's second number one overall finish. He did it back in 2019. He's done it. He's been top 10 9 times for in-season accuracy, 2 top 10 finishes for draft rankings. And here's the thing I want to say here, Boone, as somebody that's had like mixed feelings on rankings throughout the course of my career doing fantasy content. I have seen this year how much you work your ass off to make these things as good as they are and to be number one after taking some years off doing it. So like hats off to you, man. You put a ton of work into it. You put more work in it than I could ever possibly imagine, which is just, I respect the hell out of you, buddy. I'm proud of you. And I hope you are proud of yourself for taking home the title here.
I am, man. And I've talked before about, trying to win that first one was quite a challenge, and being able to do that in 2019 felt great. This one weirdly almost feels better. And part of that is because I took so much time off and, not being sure coming back 5 years off. And did my rankings get better or worse during that time? I was pretty confident my process got better, but I had people messaging me saying like, oh, why aren't you in the Fantasy Pros contest? Can't do it anymore. Eh? So being able to jump back in this year, being able to have the success that I did. And I've only been in the contest for 10 years now. And you mentioned 9 top 10 finishes, and the other year I actually tied for 10th. And if you ran down all the decimals, I finished 11th. They gave the tiebreaker to the other person. So I can't say 10 for 10, sadly. But also this year, like I was just so happy with the consistency. Might've been my most consistent season ever in terms of like weekly finishes. I finished 52nd one week, 30 something another. And other than that, I was inside the top 30 every single week for accuracy, which I don't know how many people can say that. The way Fantasy Pros calculates it, they drop some of the lower scores. They drop like your 2 lowest scores throughout the season. I almost didn't need that. I think it might have benefited me if we didn't drop any scores. And then to finish, like I just pulled it up here, 6th overall quarterback, 5th overall running back, 1st at wide receiver. I'm going to give you some credit. Working with you definitely.
I think I have to sell. I think I have to sell you a stake in reception perception now legally. I think that's what needs to happen.
And 18th in tight end. So I was, top 18 in every single position there. Just so proud of that, and so thankful to be joining Yahoo and to be working with everybody. And it's been an unbelievable year, man. And we've said this over and over as the season's gone along. And this is just a heck of a way to top it off, and the cherry on top. And look forward to producing a ton more content and keeping the rankings as accurate as possible. And we're already releasing the early rankings for 2026. I'm going to keep dropping them throughout the week here. So people should be checking those out, and we'll keep updating those throughout the offseason as well.
I'm going to be honest. Like I'm very, very thrilled. I'm thrilled about this. I'm really happy for you. Again, I respect anybody who puts just a ton of work into something, and you get the fruits of that labor. Obviously, everybody else has gotten the fruits of that labor because they've used your rankings and they've crushed it. They've been letting us know, since then, which is fantastic. I love to see that. But for you to also get the recognition is huge. You deserve it. You should bask in it for as long as you want. I'll let you bask in it on this show for as long as you want, which will probably be for about 30 more seconds is what you want. But I'm going to hopefully let the party go on a little longer. I told my wife this yesterday. I don't know what's happened to me, but I don't know. Like this is like making me emotional. The littlest things these days are making me like emotional. I'm happy for you, man. I love it. I'm really thrilled for you. This is an honor that you deserve, and shout out to you for working your ass off to get it. That's what really matters.